So that's how it is. So Dimitra, like I was telling you, of course, I don't like the scripted part, and I keep saying this, but thank you very much. I already say hi to you, but thank you very much for doing this. Your experience will be inspiring for someone. Someone sitting somewhere will listen to it and think about not just. I'm saying not just the fact that they would want the fellowship, just the fact that their ideas towards what they want to do in mediation, that will become something more concrete in their mind. When you put something on paper, you really think about it. So I was looking at it from that perspective. So thank you very much. And of course, you'll have to introduce yourself, and then we'll take it forward from there.
Thank you, Vikram, very much for the invitation. First of all, I'm always very happy to share my JAMS Weinstein Fellowship experience with everyone who's willing to listen. I'm Dimitra Gavriil. I'm from Greece. I have a legal background, so I'm a lawyer. Mediation came into my life in 2012. And I was a JAMS Weinstein International Fellow for 2015. My main areas of focus, now I consider myself a recovering lawyer. I don't go to courts anymore. I don't like it anymore now that I know mediation. My main areas of focus is what we call here in Greece, social mediation, or the social aspect of mediation. As what I mostly do is that I implement restorative practices and mediation in social settings for vulnerable populations, and especially for prisons. That's my main line of work right now. Of course, I do commercial mediations, but most of my time I spend it in prisons through the Prison of Peace program, but we will have the opportunity to talk about it more shortly.
I think that's really good work to do. I mean, I'm sure that's an area because, of course, in India that hasn't developed much. I mean, not really developed at all. So I think that's an area which I do hear now that a lot of countries have started looking at it. So definitely that's an area which needs to work. But let's, of course, from the JAMS fellowship part of it, of course, you have to tell us how that whole concept started and sure what the ideas were, what you were going to learn and come back and implement. So something there.
Yes, absolutely. So as I said, my first contact with mediation and the mediation world was back in 2012. So roughly 10 years ago. I took a training, and one of my then trainers is herself a JAMS Weinstein Fellow. And one of the things that stuck with me while we were doing the training is that this is a wonderful opportunity for whoever wants to explore mediation more. So time went by, things got more mature in my head, and I decided to apply for JAMS, for the JAMS Fellowship. It was in 2014 for the year 2015. And what I mainly wanted to do was to see how mediation works, because in Greece, it was a fairly new concept and not many people had heard about it, and there wasn't much to practice on. So I wanted to be in a place where I could actually see the real action, mediation happening before my eyes, so that I can get as much experience as I could back then. And of course, because I had this preference towards the social part, the more humane and less legal part of mediation, the United States has a variety of programs serving civilians and also vulnerable populations with mediation. Yeah. So I wanted to do that. And when I applied, and they called me for an interview. And when I had that interview phone call with them, they said, you know what, we have been supporting this organization that's called Prison of Peace. And since you are very interested in doing work with prisons and inmates in your home country, maybe we can connect you. And that's how I came to know Prison of Peace. I was accepted as a JAMS Fellow, and it was one of the happiest moments I've lived when it comes to my mediation work. And I spent in total 6 months in the United States, traveling mostly in California, in Colorado, and in Maryland. So I had the opportunity to see top mediation sessions for 500 Fortune companies within the JAMS offices. And also I had the opportunity to observe community mediation in different areas, and also the Prison of Peace program, which I later brought back to Greece and implemented here. It was a wonderful experience. It was as if I was in a mediation Disneyland, I would say, because I came from a place where this was not a big deal, and I went somewhere where I was living and breathing mediation for 6 whole months. So I couldn't be more excited about that. And at the same time, the program gives us the opportunity to also take courses at the university, especially at Aberdeen and Strauss Institute for Dispute Resolution. So it was possible for me to also take mediation courses at the university, which was a huge asset afterwards.
But Dimitra, you can't say mediation Disneyland, because what happened was I did a symposium in August and September, and Rafael from Mexico, he called it the Woodstock of mediation. Yesterday, someone said this is not, I mean, not about just about the symposium. Generally, she was saying the work that I'm doing, this is like Disneyland. Yesterday only, Constantia, she's in Brazil, she said that. So now Disneyland mediation you can't use for that. Now you have to use it for the work I do. No, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a transcending experience for those of us who love mediation and want to be able to experience it as much as possible. And it's like being in the cloud, always seeing all the possibilities of mediation and conflict resolution, of course, because that goes hand in hand. So that's why, yes, Disneyland or a Woodstock or whatever, I'm totally 100% in agreement with that.
But in terms of restorative justice, I mean, of course, a lot of work is happening in the US. So what actually specifically in terms of work, what did you get exposed to? What kind of people, what kind of with this?
Okay, yeah. So in the US, the Prison of Peace program is implemented with inmates in Californian prisons. Most of them are lifers, so people who have either no possibility of parole or who have stayed in prison for a long time. And what the program does is that we train them in conflict resolution and mediation so that they can help others resolve their conflicts within the prison environment in a non-violent way. As you probably know, violence is endemic in prisons. It's something that happens. And what we're trying to do is through these trainings to help people help others without resorting to killing people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're saying something. You're saying something. I was just going to cut you off there. Please, you were going to finish something. You were saying something.
No, and then I was saying that when I took the program back to Greece, we started implementing it with inmates and with prison personnel as well, and that creates, a more holistic approach to nonviolence in prisons.
But tell me, restorative justice in indigenous communities, did you study that also?
No, I have, no, unfortunately not. I have participated in circles involving indigenous people, First Nation people, but I haven't had the opportunity to stay with them and study it. I know it's a practice that has started with the First Nations hundreds of years ago, and we kind of took it and made it a university course. However, I think the knowledge and the wisdom comes from them, and it's pretty visible in every circle that happens nowadays, that it's something that has a long history, and also there's a lot of wisdom in it, and there's a lot of energy in the field that's created in the process.
No, that's why I will obviously keep talking about that symposium only because there were almost 100 speakers from 40 plus countries. So we had some interesting aspects. So Martha from Canada, she's part of the Mohawks in Canada. She obviously lives in that with them. And so she spoke about what they were doing there in terms of restorative justice and other ways of dispute resolution. So it's interesting things. Maybe I'll send you a link, or I'll send you the link. You should watch that. So interesting things came out. The topic of that symposium was mediation in our culture and traditions. So the idea was that people should be able to link the process. They should be because they're familiar with the process. Process is not alien to us. It's just that that word, some hyper technicality has been surrounding that word. We have to remove that. So that was the idea behind the symposium.
Yes, and it's very interesting that you say that, because here in Greece also we have customs, local customs in different areas, where one person, well respected by everyone in the village or the small town, was kind of appointed as a mediator between family conflicts. And that still happens in some areas, but when we first introduced the notion of mediation, modern mediation here in Greece 12 years ago, they thought that it was something brought from abroad.
Yeah, exactly.
But it wasn't, because we already have these customs and we do it, but we have kind of lost connection with them. Exactly. So what we're trying to do now is just try to raise awareness on what mediation is and how it relates to our people here in Greece.
Exactly. That was, I'm telling you, that was the whole idea behind that symposium. Because interestingly, you spoke about Greece. Now there is a Christian from Romania who actually went to Crete. And he actually went and stayed with those people, and he saw that the whole process. No, look, interesting thing that comes out from that is that when we see mediation, like you said, the modern concept of mediation, and what is happening in those communities, is it different? Is it really mediation? Are people being told to do what they want? So we have to study that part. I'm not saying that we should take it as it is, as whether people have a choice, don't have a choice. We should look at that. But what I have been saying is that in communities, there is something called social pressure. Okay, you are part of a community. Now, because, okay, there is a person who's respected in the community and obviously is looking at a solution and says, okay, maybe talks to you about a certain solution. Is not imposing it maybe, but saying, okay, this is what will keep the community together, and tells you. Now, if you accept it, I don't consider that wrong. Social pressure is not a bad thing. Social pressure is not a bad thing.
But it's the same thing with mediation and the mediator himself or herself, isn't it? I mean, there are parties who want to have an evaluative mediator, someone who kind of tells them, you do that. And there are other people who want to have a facilitative mediator, someone who just facilitates the process and gives them the space for them to negotiate and, reach their own conclusions. So it's kind of the same thing. So in that sense, I totally agree with you. It's also doable as mediation, of course.
Because the thing is that when we talk about, of course, evaluative mediation, in this modern setting, yes, it is something which a proposal is being given by the mediator, and in that sense, there is more choice, because, like I was saying, there is no social pressure as such to accept it. But it is coming from a person who's, of course, someone who's looked at the entire situation and, okay, whatever their reasons for giving the proposal is their proposal, you don't have to accept it. But in the social setting, in a village, say that in Crete, you are not going out. You're staying there, and you don't want relationships to that degree to get spoiled. So you accept it. So is that what do you think? Is that mediation or not? How would you look at it?
It depends on how we see things and how people who are the parties in the mediation prioritize things. So as you say, there's peer pressure, there's the social pressure. And if that's important to them in order to be able to move on, then if it's their free will to accept what is being said and agreed upon, then yes, it's mediation. On the other hand, if they're feeling coerced, obligated to do that, then for me it's not mediation, because ultimately mediation is based on our free will. And if our priority is to be okay with the rest of the society and it's our choice, then it's fine.
Exactly.
By me, at least.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying, because what is happening is a lot of people are rejecting this whole traditional method, saying only this. Look, the people didn't have a choice. I'm saying they had a choice. They always had a choice. But you did they
Absolutely.
chose to take this aspect of it, keeping the social harmony. It's not wrong. Because I'm telling you what has happened is we've moved into this very, again, I agree, this is a repetition, and all the time I say individualistic societies, which for me are selfish societies. We moved out of the whole community concept. So in those places where mediation is discussed, there is no concept of community. So they are looking only as individuals, always living as individuals, and no social pressure as such is nowhere in the picture itself. So for them to even understand this concept of living together is not being coerced, is being maybe practical, or maybe that's what you want to do. So I think we need to, because why I want to do that is because, like I said, up till you don't connect people to what is a process which they are used to, the mediation, it hasn't taken off the way it should have taken off. I mean, I don't know, you would tell me about Greece more than that. Because of course I've discussed with people in Greece also, but in general in the world, not the way it should be, the way we know how it works, and the benefits and everything we keep talking about in the mediation world, all the nice things. But just outside that mediation world, the activity is not the way we would want it. And again, the fact that a person cannot practice as a full-time mediator in most parts of the world, I would say all over the world. I mean, there are these few people like me, and I find a few people somewhere else who say that they're full-time mediators. Otherwise, they don't. So there's some fundamental issue. I mean, even in the US, of course, if 40, 45 years, you don't have too many of those people around, there's something there. So what do you feel? Why hasn't that happened?
Okay, before I answer that question, I just want to go just for a minute back to the restorative practices thing and the mediation and the social pressure. One thing that I would like to add is that restorative justice is based on owning our own actions. And that means that we're aware of our choices and the impact that our choices has on other people. So when a party in mediation accepts the social pressure, for me, it is mediation as long as they're fully aware of their decision, that it's not an imposed decision without them having any kind of free will in it. So as long as they're fully aware, then that's really the essence of mediation.
Absolutely.
Without anyone else being able to make any judgment on that decision, because ultimately it's our decision, our free will, and our life.
Yep, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Okay, so regarding your question about mediation practice here in Greece, I am a full-time mediator, combining the Prison of Peace program and mediations. At the same time, this is not a very, it's not a practice that you see everywhere. And nowadays, well, Greece is a 10 million people country. And so far, we're roughly 3,000 mediators in the country. However, mediation is not yet viewed as something that someone can resort to. Why? Because there's lack of knowledge about what this is. So people are very skeptical. They don't know what the role of the mediator is. And I hear many times in my own practice, but why do we need you if we can negotiate by ourselves? And if we cannot negotiate by ourselves, then how can you help us? We can just go before a judge and they can decide for us. So that's the concept that they have of mediation, and it's not very popular in the country yet. On the other hand, one of the incentives for the United States to go to mediation is the money factor. So going to court costs a lot more money than going to mediation. We don't have that in Greece because court is very accessible. Mm-hmm. And also it takes a lot of time, and that's a good thing for the people who owe money. So why would they speed up a process when they owe money, and it can take them 7 or 10 years, before a court ruling comes that says to them, you have to pay this. So we're looking at other incentives. And the thing that I have realized in my practice is that in order for people to go to mediation, one of the most important factors is to want to either keep the relationship going or have an amicable break of that relationship. So what I do, especially in my commercial cases, I tell them, okay, you have two options here. Since if you don't want to keep the relationship going, you can go to court and fight, or you can get an amicable divorce. Which one sounds better to you? And much more often than not, the amicable divorce in commercial cases sounds much, much better to most of them.
So you have to sell it. You have to sell the concept and what they would understand. Yeah.
Yes.
But but in terms of popularity, you're still saying that it's not like a culture of mediation that we would want over time. Because look, thing is, there was Evie from Greece in that symposium took us into Socrates, and from that time onwards, what was happening in Greece. So in that sense, there is so much history. And then when we look at the modern situation, that connection is lost. So, but anything on that, why was that connection lost? Why did people move away from something which was part of their lives at some point of time? Any theories on that?
Well, we have a very rich history as a country, including 400 years of Turkish domination. And I think that broke a lot of links from the past. But that's my personal opinion. And, I think that we need to find that special something that triggers people into wanting to opt for mediation. Because now, most people think that they will be safer in a court environment, that a judge's decision will be safer for them, will make sure that things happen. But they miss the fact that there's no win-win. There is a winner and a loser all the time in the court environment. So that's what we need to work on.
But your connection with this whole social mediation and that aspect of it, how did that happen? I mean, why were you attracted towards that?
Paradoxically, and even if I have a legal background and I'm a lawyer, I'm very conflict avoidant. Good. And and the idea of conflict, what creates it and how it escalates, has always been something very, very close to my heart. And in my mind, in my head, the most common place where conflict escalates is prisons, where people don't have many choices, many options, and they are confined in a very closed environment and they cannot get out. So all of that, it's really very close to my heart. I don't know how else to explain it. But I think that this is the most meaningful thing that I can do for me. If even one person faces less violence in prison with our help, then I think that I'm doing something very important.
Interestingly, Dimitra, just after it's at 7:30 India time, I have Rafael, again the same person who designed that poster. He's coming in for a lecture. I have a lecture series, and he's done a lot of work in the prisons in Mexico. Maybe if you could come in for that, or you should meet him, because he's really, I mean, in that sense, he has that good intention to do things there. So he's actually worked that. So maybe, because I have a show called In Conversations with a Beautiful Mind. So he was on that. So he's discussed this aspect there also. But you must meet him. You must meet him. It's a good work that he's doing. But tell me, in terms of prison system itself, and prison reforms? I mean, what is your concept of prisons themselves? Should they exist the way they exist? What reforms should happen there on a general level, not just the conflict resolution part of it in the prison, but prison as a concept?
Tough question. Okay. Ever since I got to know the concept of restorative justice and also nonviolent communication, I can't say that I believe in punishment anymore. So the idea of reward and punishment is not really something that goes well with me. The important thing when I think about it and when I think about breaking the rules, because that's what prisons are all about, people who break the rules and they go in as a form of punishment and correction. My idea is, because none of us was born isolated from the world and we're all born within communities, my idea is always for the community to try and help the person who has broken the rules to see what happened, to assume responsibility, and at the same time for the community to assume responsibility as well. Because a delinquent person, again, does not live outside of society. When that does not work, then there needs to be a way for the society to be safe. So when there's not accountability, when people do not own their actions, when they do not assume responsibility, and they pose a threat, a danger to society, there needs to be a way to keep society safe and keep them safe as well. I'm not sure that the concept of prison is the right one. I can't say that. But I'm definitely not for the idea of punishment. I don't think there should be any punishment for anything. There should be accountability and rehabilitation.
Yeah, you rightly said that the person doesn't exist in isolation. There are so many factors which go around it, and the society that we create, I mean, of course, like you say, you create a materialistic society, so there are pressures in that sense. Maybe now, is that individual, everyone is not at that mature level to understand a lot of things, and I mean, there are so many factors working. So in that sense, everyone around also can take some blame for certain actions. Yes, I mean, that's a lot of, I'm sure that's a whole area of work which is happening, and I'm sure you are some way connected to that, definitely. But I always felt that these are things which need to be discussed, because maybe the way the prison structure was it created by maybe a ruler or someone else, a certain colonizer, or whoever else might have developed certain ways of what a prison should be, was in a different environment. And as the whole concept of the structure of the governments and okay, we use the word democracy. That also I have a little bit of problem with. I won't use democracy, but certain political structures that have been created. In that, do we need to relook that? I really feel that we need to, because certain things have been passed down to us, and those things we've accepted because sometimes it is convenient, because it's already been done. It's a structure there. Let's take it. But I think we need. Yeah, please.
And also, I think that the prison system, as it works right now, is the radical and very easy solution when it comes to how to put away the criminals. Because, restorative justice and rehabilitation and community work, that takes time.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's an issue for so many countries. So it's the radical and the easy way, but there are so many other ways to bring back people to the society. And if you think of recidivism rate, which globally is about 65 to 70%, so a person who goes out of prison has 65 to 70% chances of going back in, it makes it clear that this is not a system that really works.
Yep, absolutely.
Whereas when there's a restorative justice system, the recidivism rate really drops below 20%.
But Dimitra, you should also look at it from this perspective that there may not be as many people like you who want to work on that in this area. So maybe that is why that so much work did not happen. I don't know. I mean, of course, you are part of an institution which is doing work, but we have to look at a much larger kind of activity happening with lots of good people coming together to do it. So I don't know, because look, for here, I don't really know whether nothing is happening here as such, but people are talking about it, yes. But where things have happened, I don't see people like you who really have that good intention to really do something from the heart. Do we have so many people? I mean, you're part of all these institutions. How many such people do you really meet?
Well, Vikram, when people ask me what I do and I tell them about my prison work, I get a lot of question marks like, why on earth are you wasting your time on these people? And that's where the problem is, actually, because we separate them from us. We think that they're different, that we can never be in their place.
Yeah.
But the thing is that we can. They're human beings as much as we are. And whatever happened to them might also happen to us. Or had we had the same experience that they had, we might have ended up in the same way. So it's not us versus them. It's us all together. And I think that's an approach that's more helpful than the other one.
Exactly. I think that's, but like back to what you were saying earlier, that person is not living in isolation, and there are so many things which we can't understand. I mean, someone working in, say, an institution somewhere to reform things, can that person relate to what that individual had gone through? Because you can't. I mean, first of all, it's not just one incident. There are a lot of things that go around what the person becomes, and you can't go into each of them for every person, because it's all unique. It could be one small incident somewhere which could have triggered something off. So it's a very complex kind of thing, which of course you are working on. So I'm sure you people have the theory and everything around it. I'm just thinking from what you were saying that this is an area which needs some look at it, because because I'll tell you what the problem is. When I look at the system in India and I look at the court system, I keep saying the justice is denied, because justice delayed is justice denied. Now you put a person behind bars. I find it a very colonial thing that you can just throw someone in the jail. Your institution is the most inefficient institution. You don't know when that person, you're going to give that person justice. That person is going to be innocent until proven guilty. Now you have thrown someone which you do not. I keep saying, in 1 hour you should be able to decide. Why would you take someone's freedom away when you know for 20 years you will not be able to decide? It doesn't matter at the end of the day, a innocent person went out or a guilty person went in. It is that 20 years of someone's life that you played with. And I still keep saying this is a colonial mindset. We have to, I mean, you won't be able to imagine our Indian penal code. Just a guess what the year of that penal code is. Just a guess.
In the 1800s, maybe.
Yes, yes. 1860. Can you believe this? I mean, what world are we living in? So I'm just saying that colonial mind, and not in India. I'm just saying if this same thing has happened in colonies all over. We picked up something which was made for the colony. Throwing someone inside a jail when you do not even know when the person is innocent or guilty, and a structure of courts that you made with such processes because you had to control it. I mean, if you had to have the colonizer getting out of it, you had to show the colony, look, we have a structure, but put so much discretion in the system for the judges that a colonizer's person cannot will get out in some way or the other. So that whole framework, everything, there's so much undoing that needs to be done. I mean, of course we do. Yeah.
It is very, very, I think it's crucial that the law of every society should correspond and meet the needs of that society. And the needs are different over time because the circumstances are different.
Yeah.
So staying with outdated systems is really not at the benefit of anyone.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I'm saying, that we need to, but why doesn't it happen? I mean, I really find it surprising. 1860 Indian Penal Code, a Civil Procedure Code 1908, and I checked with other countries. Yeah, I mean, day before yesterday, I have a JAMS fellow from Bangladesh, same penal code. Oh no, same Civil Procedure Code we have. Pakistan has the same Civil Procedure Code because we got the same, part of the same country at that time, so we got the same. Kept it. They've all kept it. It just is convenient because a colonizer and a government which comes in later, it's convenient for them to take that because it helps you. The system has been created in that manner. All these, the police acts and everything, that whole colonizer's framework of running a minority, running a majority, or ruling a majority, which is what I was saying about the democracy thing, that we are really not a democracy, because out of the entire votes in the country, only 25% have gone to the government which is in power. In US, 33%. Joe Biden has only 33% of the votes of the entire country. So it's a minority still ruling a majority. So you need all these systems in some way to control it.
Yes,
But
and that's exactly why grassroots movements matter,
yeah,
because change, if it can't come from above, then it can come from below. And the work that we're doing, I think conflict resolution and mediation is very, very important work that has the power to change a lot of things and the way that people think.
yeah. But the thing is that, look, I mean, I definitely want to change things at the grassroots level, but to develop mediation as a profession for people is what well, that has to happen. And a full-time profession is what it needs to happen. So I've been saying that these people who are out there at the grassroots level, I mean, what grassroots means, what in villages and everywhere. For India, 60% rural population in villages, there are already people who are already doing it. They are trusted by the community, people are going to them, and resolution is happening. Because there was some report in India which came out that only 5% of the matters which disputes go into courts. So can you imagine? And only that way, only 18 million go into courts, only 18 million in a year, which is nothing, because 100 million go into courts in the US. So that means something is happening there. There is something happening. Now we need to strengthen that. So, but the only problem that I am looking at is that the court system and the whole concept of mediation developing through the court system is ruining that. So now the self-interest of the courts is totally working against what we want to do. I have to create this, because for finally, if a person comes into a profession, you have to show them there's first of all livelihood. First thing that you have to show them. Everything else comes later. We were talking about in those villages, like in Crete, that person who becomes a mediator is someone has a social standing. So they're not
Mhm.
doing it for money. They have a social standing. They're doing it as part of that. Okay, this person is the mediator for this. So it is good for them socially. But this is not the way it's going to happen if you have to develop the profession. So that, I think, is an issue. I don't know what's happening in Greece. You have to tell me. Has the court system ruined the profession of mediation?
Well, not really, because professional mediation is it's doing, I think, even less than baby steps right now. What the legislator has done here is that from 2019, they passed a law that says that for every civil case exceeding a certain amount of money, you have to do an obligatory first mediation session. That's mainly for the purposes of being informed on what mediation is, and also exploring whether there's any interest in continuing with the mediation. And there has been a lot of very divided opinions about that legal obligation. There are people who say, oh, that's a good thing because we came to know what this is and we moved on and we decided to take our case to mediation. And there are people who just considering a technicality that doesn't make any sense, that only adds up to the cost of litigation. So I'm not quite sure what's going to happen yet. What I know is that, we need to walk the talk. So we can't be mediators and not behave ourselves as mediators in our private lives and professional lives. We need to be able to show people what mediation is and how it can work, and show it by our own example. And in my eyes, that's the only thing that's going to make mediation advance, in baby steps, but advance.
Because look, again, back to the symposium, I'll have to go back there, because with so many people from all these countries telling us about each of their experiences, and the fact that the law, like you said, mandatory mediation, mandatory first meeting, everyone has their thing that put in. I've been saying, look, the courts have nothing to do with mediation. It's a totally different method of dispute resolution. Now, courts are they've got too many matters. It's like overbooked kind of situation. So they need a release. So if you need a release, you found this as a release in a way, because the the foundation is weak. Courts have nothing to do with mediation. It absurd things come out from that. Absurd things like you said, you must go for a particular meeting. You have to go for actually first session. You can opt out if you want, but you have to do this. You keep putting all that. But at the same time, they came to you for a certain method of dispute resolution. So you first of all can't charge them for that. People, you can't, if you moment you say that you have to pay for something, they're going to question you that we don't want it, why are you telling us to pay for it? So you can't do that. The other option is the state funds it. The state funds the mediators. Definitely the state is not going to pay them in terms of what I keep saying. They should be paid more than the judges, because they're actually ending up resolving a dispute. A finality comes in there. Pay them as much. Can the state do it? It can't do it. So finally, what is going to happen? The profession will not be able to develop, because finally they'll be doing it either for whatever reasons. Look, in the US, it is because they want to be recognized by the lawyers, because lawyers control the entire mediation thing there. So if you are in the court system, you will be you'll be out there. The lawyers can choose you for free almost, and you will be maybe recognized, and you might get private work. They think so. It doesn't happen. Because there was Jeff he's a full-time mediator there. He spoke speaking about his own experience. He said I was being used for free, but they never gave me private work. And I kept telling them, said this, you've given yourself for free here. Why should we not use that? So that whole lot gets totally disheartened, disillusioned, moves out. A new lot comes in, thinking now they will get something. It doesn't happen. So that method also did not do. Some people tell me that these people in this court system, these mediators, are looking at becoming judges. So they want to be recognized by judges as okay, they're doing something good. So they have that reason. So various people have various reasons, but the one thing is they have something else to do. They are litigating lawyers, most of them, and they are part of the court system. So they also go, okay, maybe we'll go to the mediation center, spend some time there, kind of thing. The profession doesn't develop. The signal that goes out to society is it's free and it is connected to the courts. Two of the worst things that can happen to mediation. It's nothing to do with courts. We have to put that whole thing out. So for me, that whole thing, of course, needs to be scrapped. But the self-interest of the judges, of the judiciary, definitely is not going to let that happen. They have too much of a say. Again, I'm saying, I'll go back to the whole colonial concept that dispute resolution only happens in courts, and dispute resolution is only done by lawyers. That whole mindset has to go away if you have to develop mediation. So as a profession, to develop it is that's the only way. Look, for me, that one mediator also who is getting frustrated because they cannot practice as a full-time mediator only because the system has not been created. For me, that's bad enough. And I keep giving, there's one person whose example I keep giving, that I told her yesterday only that I'm going to call this project Constantia, because she is said, in my lifetime I want to see that I can practice as a full-time mediator. I mean, imagine that kind of a situation. So it's going to be called Project Constantia, and it has to be worked at creating full-time employment as mediators for mediators. Yeah, please, you were saying something. I cut you off.
I think it's the same in the United States. I remember our mentors and trainings and trainers at JAMS saying to us, you know, there are like thousands of mediators out there. It's only a small percentage that actually make it to being full-time mediators. Yeah. And I think it's normal, because the profession of being a mediator is not very, it's not like the other profession. It's not like you do a training and then you're ready to go. There need to be more stuff involved in it. Maybe a bit more experience with life. And also, it is important to realize that the people who are going to come to you they're coming to you because they trust you. In some ways, they see us like they're therapists, although it's not psychotherapy what we're doing, but there needs to be that kind of trust in order for them to feel safe enough to be in a space where they can negotiate with what they perceive as an enemy. So there needs to be a lot of work before one becoming full-time mediator. And the full-time mediators that I know of is that they develop their practice throughout the years while doing other things as well, up to the point where their mediation work was taking so much more of their time than it did before. Then they decided to just ditch the other things and stay with mediation. So it's not like I'm studying law, I'm doing my practice, I'm becoming a lawyer, I register at the Bar Association, and then I start litigating. It's not like that. There needs to be a process, and usually it happens gradually. So it takes more time for a mediator to be a full-time mediator.
I'll tell you, my concept, which I'm trying to develop, is that there are, like I said, there are people trusted. Let's go back to just one unit, the village. Let's start from there if we have to. And the same thing would be in the urban scenario, a community. We can do that. But let's say a village. There is a person who's trusted, has the natural ability. They're trusted because they have the natural ability, because, or they're trusted, whatever way, how that combination is working, but they have the natural ability. People are going to them, they're trusted, and they are delivering. The user experience is excellent because they're going back. That entire village is going back to a few people. So first of all, everyone doesn't have it. So I've been saying that you don't make mediators. It is a natural ability that is there. Then this show that I do, Evolution of a Mediator, was only for that. That all these, like you said, life experiences takes you into a certain mindset and the evolution of that mindset. But I keep saying there has to be a seed. So everyone doesn't have that seed. So people who already have that seed are already identified, and that tree has grown. Some places the tree has grown over years. So these people, if they come into the profession, they take it as full-time profession, but they're doing something else. This is something that comes to them naturally. They don't even think they're doing anything. People come, they sit with them, they resolve, they move out, and next lot come sometime, they do it. It's a process which is happening all the time. So if these people who have everything going for them, we can bring them into the fold as professional mediators full time, user experience is guaranteed, and only user experience can spread the word. There is no other way of spreading any profession. So you have, and by creating legislation that, okay, we have to have this training, the certification, accreditation, it hasn't worked. There was a mediator from UK. He says 18,000 of them are accredited there. 500 have worked. There's some fundamental issue. You just can't pick up anything. And who's evaluating you? There's the person who's training you. I mean, there are so many factors which go around it. So I'm saying that aspect of it hasn't really worked. Otherwise, in the US, you would not have 100 million cases being filed. If in over 40, 45 years, if that user experience was so good, then definitely the word of mouth would have taken it places. I mean, I with my one matter, I get 10 matters from the same company. Can you imagine what that situation in 40, 45 years should have been? So there is some fundamental issue there. We have to, but I'm saying, okay, they're doing what they're doing and they've been doing it for years. Let them do that. But on the other end, there are places where it hasn't really happened. Nothing much has happened. So let's look at those places, start afresh. And today, of course, like in India, today we have a very good legislation, which is totally free. You can do anything. You can choose who you want, however the process to happen, nothing regulated on that. And the settlement agreement is as good as a court decree. So empowerment of the person sitting in a village, that you can get a court decree sitting in a village. But these other people who have this formal mediation, other things that keep talking about, because of that, they've created a draft which is out right now for comments, and that bill is going to be presented in Parliament in the winter session now. Totally changes the concept. Regulate, create a mediation council of India, which will put regulations in place in a country where nothing has happened. So similarly, the same thing would be happening in other countries, where you had something which is totally, everyone were doing it on their own. They were choosing the person, and without any legislation. There was no legislation was required in a community to do that. It was happening. So that is being changed by people who haven't dug a little deeper into jurisdictions from where they picked this up. The US hasn't regulated it for years. I mean, JAMS has been created in an unregulated market. They still became the largest service provider in the world. There's no regulation. You can be like Hiro Aragaki, who's a he's part of JAMS. He was on my show in Conversations of Beautiful Mind, and he has that the market will decide kind of attitude. So it is word of mouth. I'm saying people don't watch movies without checking with people. Are you just going to go to anyone and tell them, okay, you become our mediator? You will find out. You will sit with the person. Every time you have a meeting, you have to, that trust has to be there. Otherwise, you walk out. It's this, I don't know what's been created around this whole mediation thing, as if people are being forced into a room and they'll have to be locked in and they're going to stay there and they don't have a choice. So I mean, I have different views on it, Dimitra. So maybe I sound a little.
There are different approaches to how to enhance mediation work. I agree with you that when someone is talented, then things are much easier. At the same time, I think that skills can be sharpened and mentalities can change. Even going through a formal training with mediator trainers who know mediation, I mean, really know, and walk the talk, that changes things. That creates shifts in people's mindsets. So I do think that someone can become a skilled mediator and an effective and efficient mediator without that presence of the talent in them. At the same time, if they do have it, then even better. And there has been, especially in Greece, because we have been dwelling on whether mediation should be regulated or not regulated for the past 12 years already, 13 years since the European Directive of 2008. It's a matter of approach. Personally, I don't like mediation being too much regulated because for me, it's not a legal process. It's a deeply humane process. At the same time, I understand why they're doing it and how they're trying to bring people closer to it. So what I say is that if we cannot change what happens from above, we can change the small circle of people we interact with every day. And being a mediator and having developed or enhanced or augmented, if you want, the mediator mindset, the skill set, that makes a lot of difference in the people around us.
Like you said, look, developing a skill development is something which I still talk about. I'll tell you, there's a lecture series I've started. I'll take you through that. Lectures were the best in the world kind of thing. So people should get that. But training, I have an issue with, because I'm saying that these people have the natural ability. They don't need to be trained, but skill development is an area that we can always work on. Because I'm saying, if you say that person doesn't have the natural ability and you want to make them a mediator, that's like there is definitely work happening on machine learning and artificial intelligence. That's the same thing. You will do it to a machine, you will do it to a person, and output would come out because there are certain parameters that you'll enter into the person or into the machine, and machine might be able to do it better because you'll be able to input a lot of things, and you'll be able to input a lot of data as you go along. You might videograph the sessions if people allow that, only for machines, not for any personal consumption. For machines, they'll be able to see what tone and everything will be fed in, and some output will come out because artificial intelligence can create a lot of things out of that. So that area will keep happening, where without the humane part of it, how that has to happen. But the humane part of it is definitely a natural ability which everyone can't bring in. I keep talking about the energy that mediator brings in, the spirituality that a mediator brings in. There are much larger things for the humane part of it. But otherwise, as just a okay, feed this input, that output will come out. Okay, you have to do this. When that happens, that part of it always will happen. I mean, it could be any profession or anything, that part of it definitely does happen. But I just feel that this thing, but what I'm going to do is, let me take you through the activities that I do, which I started doing earlier. I did not do this, but take you through that. And part of that, I'll tell you about the lecture series also, why that concept came in. To give me 1 second to do that, because I just feel that, one, I've been telling people that, look, no one knows what I do because I do too much, I think. So I should take you through that. And then the lecture series, that inspiration behind the lecture series. So this was the symposium. So a wonderful poster that Raphael has developed. And this is upon the original poster of Woodstock. Now this is like becoming, I call it the Woodstock of mediation. Then this is the Mediator Experiences
Yes,
that I've started. Are they, I mean, you will know all of them. Are they
I
Tatlin?
know most of them, yes.
Yeah, definitely. Then Judge Shema, Migle, she's a fellow for this year. So I don't know whether you know her. And Katerina, Anna, Gide, she's from Ethiopia. Gabriela, there was an interesting conversation we had. Was a lot of areas went into spirituality, also this constellations concept that's been going. She's talking about some part of it because it wasn't like detailed, but we're talking about that. Jajali is from Bangladesh.
Yes.
Derek, that was also a very interesting conversation we had yesterday. Or day before, yeah. Then
No,
that's you.
and
That's
me.
you. That's you.
Okay.
Okay. This was that mediation bill I'm saying, which is going to, I
Hmm.
mean, going to really, we had that discussion on it, but that's one area which I feel that if we might just go the wrong way. We have the best happening right now. Imagine in a country like ours, where I keep saying we have the best law on mediation. And in this same country, people are saying we don't have any law on mediation. Can there be such a situation like that? That's how it is.
Well, I think there can be if they think of it as such a natural thing that no law is required. Then
No. I'll tell you
yes.
where it's coming from. It's coming from a very basic thing. We got a law on conciliation in 1996.
Hmm.
Uncitral was using the word conciliation at that time because that was
Hmm.
okay. Whatever the reason
Yes.
for that usage of that word was, we picked up that model law and we incorporated it. And very nice, perfect. Everything is good about it, except the difference that has come out with the Singapore Convention. That whole settlement
Hmm.
agreement directly becomes a court decree, while in our law conciliation it becomes a arbitral award on consent terms and becomes
Hmm.
a court decree. So it takes that route, which is perfectly all right. I mean, that at that time that was the
Hmm.
reason. Today you can tweak that. I mean, tweaking that takes how much time? That this becomes a settlement agreement, and the criteria for not enforcing them is can be put there. So we have that, but the point is that there is a definition of mediation today available in the Singapore Convention, which wasn't there, and that definition covers conciliation as we have it, because it is put so widely that any process, whatever name you give it, however you do it, as long as the person doesn't have the authority to impose a decision, that's it.
Hmm.
So the conciliation fits into it. Now, to keep confusing people, because oh, this is not called mediation. I'm saying you can you call arbitration mediation and will it become mediation? How can the word change the process? You have to look at the process. It's funny when I see this potato thing. I keep saying that someone wants to make mashed potato, but the other one calls it potato, so we won't make it. No, it's called potato. No, it's just do it. It's all there. So I think that is where things are. People are confused or vested interest or self-interest or whatever reasons. So I did a little workshop on that also. But my
That's
concept,
why it is.
yeah,
Yes, I'm sorry to interrupt you. That's why it's very important for people to agree on definitions.
that's what I'm saying. And we've luckily today, if 55 countries have in principle they've agreed on the definition. That's why they signed it.
Hmm.
In principle, okay, you might not have ratified today. Signing it means you agreed with it, the definition. So in India signed it. So in principle, we've agreed. Okay, Greece might not have signed it. That's a different thing, but we have. So if we
Hmm.
have got a definition which is something where the country accepts, so why not look at it? Why disregard it? It's there. It's there. It's for everyone to see. It's not something that you have to dig out from somewhere. It's right there. So that okay. This was the lecture series. So basically, Ken Cloak was on my first episode, and this is what he said. So this aspect of it, I said, let's inspire people who are out there. Again, for me, this is outside the mediation world as we know it. There are people out there who will not never be able to go to a lecture about mediation. There are a lot of people, obviously. So let's get this to them. So then this lecture series, okay, there were 4 of them in October. The 5th one was Michael Lang,
Hmm.
wonderful person. I don't know whether you know him, but he's really nice. There's another part of what he does. I'll come to that. So then this is that in conversation, the beautiful mind that I do. So these are conversations with people like that's what we're having. It's just conversations. There's no agenda or anything. Because I just felt
Hmm.
that people with the mediator mindset, they're all wonderful people. Let them be out there. And that started only because there was the one legal head that I'd approached and he said, look, I don't know who a mediator is. I've heard about mediation. I don't know. Now that you have come to me, I can put a face to a mediator. I said, let's put mediators out there. Let people put a face to mediators. So that's how this series started. And then this was a lecture. Here, Mr. Akesanya in his lecture is talking about how in the court system, because he's a mediator, he's a lawyer and he's also a mediator in the court system there. He says, when I go into the court, I go as a mediator, and this lawyer comes in with the wig. They still got the wig. Okay, the colony has been stayed a colony, that robe and wig. He walks in. They're respected, and a mediator is not. First of all, the amount that I get, the people say this is as much as my clerk gets. And money is a major factor in terms of respect in societies. How much are you getting? So in for the entire mediation, they would get some $40 for the entire mediation. So that the respect aspect in society was talking about that. And I've been saying they have the multi-door courthouse system. So what I've been saying is that in the multi-door courthouse, have a point when you tell them about mediation, arbitration, litigation, everything. After that, everyone should be paid the same. So a litigating lawyer and a mediator should be paid the same. If you pay $40 to a mediator, a lawyer cannot charge more than that. He gets $40 for the entire case. On that day, the mediation center will be closed, or all the lawyers will be on the street. They'll close the courts down. For what reason we are being taken for granted, I don't understand. I just can't understand. I mean, why? Are we not delivering? Are we not required? Then just finish it off. No, we're not required. They're not doing anything. But I think we are not valuing ourselves because we are not going to go on the streets. Or either maybe we'll have to create this dispute resolution revolution that I talk about. I think we'll have to go on the streets to do something.
Well, it's very important to feel acknowledged and to know that your work counts. And
Exactly.
monetary compensation is a way of acknowledgement. So
Absolutely.
I see your point.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, because we've structured society in that manner. But if you structured it that manner, then you put it in the right perspective there. Okay, Bernie Mayer, senior mediator, wonderful person. We started this was the first part, because now these, like with Ken Cloak, there was some 4 parts to his. So this is the first part, and going into very basics, into grandparents and what they came from, mother growing up, and so I'm going to, because I'm saying the evolution is not, look, a mediator has a lot of aspects while growing up itself and being born into a family of a certain type, what their thoughts are. So he was also surprised. He says, look, in my lifetime, no one has asked me all these questions. So, so we're still at the point where his mother is growing up. Okay, that's the first episode done. So the second part is coming in December. So that's Gunawati in Malaysia, wonderful person. And of course, she's been on that show in Conversation, The Beautiful Mind also. This is what he also does. Michael Lang is into reflective practice. So this book, he's well known in that area. So I said, why not do this as a series? So it's called Mediator Reflects. So the first one happened on Saturday. You must watch it. He had these people from his Irish group. So he has these groups all over the world, practice groups, reflective practice groups. So he had people from Ireland, and they say that we made history. This is the first time this is out in recorded thing and put out in public, how they go about it. So there were 2 people who were discussing things that they wanted to, whatever, through their mediation, whatever experience they had, they were talking about it, and Michael was taking them through that. So interesting. So this is also a series which I've created now, because I felt that people would want to in some way reflect, and let's get that in. Okay, that book, he put a discount on that book. This happened yesterday. Again, her session of the symposium also you must watch, about art and mediation and those work that interesting work, different from what I keep saying. Look, mediation is like the blind man and the elephant situation. Everyone has that little part that they're doing and they think that is mediation, but there is that elephant. I think maybe the elephant everyone doesn't see, or some people do see at some stage, but at least some parts of it everyone is experienced and exposed to. And I felt that that symposium maybe brought out this aspect that people from all over the world are doing various things. So put that together under one umbrella. So that was good. This is happening now in the next 1 hour. Yeah, in about an hour. So that's, he's all, like I said, you must meet him, because that the prison system and what he's done in the prison system in Mexico, interesting work. Andrea, part of that reflective practice group of Michael also, she was there. And of course, she's been part of what in Mediators Collective and more meetings and everything used to come there. And this is on the last day of the month to celebrate mediators, because I keep saying they're special people, so they need to be celebrated. So that's how it is. They try to take you through this. Of course, in the bargain, also taking other people through it, which, like I keep saying, that LinkedIn, Facebook will never show you what all is happening. They can't, because obviously they'll only put out some posts to you. But the entire, that whole elephant, no one sees. So I said, let me show everyone the elephant.
It's very important work that you're doing, Vikram, showing what mediation is actually, and putting it out there. And I'm really hoping that many people will be inspired by that work of yours, and that mediation will become more part of their lives than it is now.
Thank you. Kind words. And definitely that's why I'm also hoping that it is taken up as part of, it should become a way of life. That's the way it has to be.
Yes.
We have to just keep working on that. And of course, you're also working on very important areas. I think that is an important area. So, but concluding remarks, Dimitra, for we went away from the JAMS fellowship. Concluding remarks to inspire those people out there who you feel that should be applying for it and something more. I think I did move you away a lot from that. So please.
It's, I think the JAMS Fellowship, it's a one lifetime opportunity of really getting to know what mediation is at its best in every domain possible that you can think of, whether it's commercial, civil, purely legal, or social with vulnerable populations, even with children. The JAMS Fellowship gives people the tools and the resources to do that. So I couldn't recommend it more highly to anyone. It definitely changed my life.
Because what I'm thinking from that, because after how I got to know was because of Migle, because she was in conversation, the beautiful mind. She spoke about it, so I of course I saw a post after that, and I said, look, this sounds interesting. Let's take this. Let's see what's happening here. From that, I realized that look, JAMS is only going to take maybe about 10 people or whatever in the entire year. So I said, let's create. So now what I'm trying to do now is get people who want to fund people who are doing good things. So I'm now trying to put that together because there's so many people out there. If I found interesting people wanting to do interesting things in terms of mediation, but again, opportunity aspect of it. So that is now the next project which I'm looking at how that works out. Let's see.
Wonderful.
So this is a good thing to talk to you people to understand how you are looking at it also. So we'll work together on how to develop it. Let's just put it out. Let's help these people who have good thoughts, good intentions, and let's try to do that. So Dimitra, thank you.
Absolutely.
These conversations will go on. I'm just finishing this episode. Conversations will keep going on. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Vikram.